3 die, many injured in Lagos road accident. Economic and Financial Crimes Commission arrests 28 suspects in FBI indictment list, recovers more than 400 million naira. In international news, Puerto Rico under state of emergency as tropical storm Dorian approaches. And in sport, Flying Eagles defeat Mali to qualify for African Games final.
This is ANN News.
I am Olanjumoke Olatunji. Lagos State Traffic Management Authority LASTMA has confirmed the death of 3 persons and injuries to many when a Dangote truck carrying 600 bags of cement collided with a BRT bus in the Ikorodu area of Lagos. Eyewitnesses say the driver of the truck lost control and the vehicle collided with the BRT bus that was on its corridor. The bus was conveying scores of passengers to different destinations as it headed to its last bus stop at Ikorodu Garage. LASTMA says on its Twitter handle, the truck skidded off the main way to collide with a high-capacity bus on the BRT corridor. Managing Director of Primero, owner of the BRT bus, Fola Tinubu, also confirmed 3 people died in the accident. 2 of the deceased were Primero staff. The third was a female passenger. The BRT bus had 40 passengers on board. The probe list of fraud suspects indicted for fraud by the U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigation has helped the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission to recover 486 million naira from 28 suspects. AFCC Acting Chairman Ibrahim Mago says collaboration between the Commission and the FBI led to the recovery of the funds. Mago says the sum of 373 million naira has been traced to various commercial banks by the Lagos Zonal Office of the Commission. Mago says 14 suspects had been charged and convicted, 9 are currently undergoing trial, while 5 are still under investigation. More than 80 cases are still being investigated from the EFCC-FBI joint operations. President Muhammadu Buhari has reconstituted the board of the Niger Delta Development Commission and has approved the appointment of a new chairman, Pius Odubu, Edo State's former deputy governor. The president's approval is subject to Senate confirmation. Odubu served as Adams Oshomole's deputy when the national chairman of the All Progressives Congress was the governor of Edo State. The Lagos State House of Assembly has set up a panel to probe the administration of Lagos former governor Hakimwumi Ambode. The panel is led by Honorable Fatai Mojid. The committee has been mandated to probe the purchase of 820 buses that had been scheduled for public transport in the state, allegedly without budgetary approval. The committee was set up following a motion moved by Gbolahan Ishau, representing Etiosa 2. During the Tuesday's plenary, the lawmaker says the assembly was worried that the buses were purchased with taxpayers' money without legislative approval. Yeshau also moved that the House investigate the cost of the purchase and other issues surrounding the purchase to prevent a reoccurrence. The Speaker has directed the committee to interview the State Accountant General, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Transport, current Commissioner for Finance, and Lamata's Managing Director. The Nigerian government has made agriculture one of its areas of focus in increasing business opportunities and making Nigeria self-sufficient in food production. Many Nigerians are heeding the call. A banker who gave up the corporate dress for the farm denim is making waves in training the youth and women in farming. Reporter Deji Badmus has the story of Amaka Chukudum.
Far from the typical image of a farmer in Nigeria, but Amaka Chukudum is a very serious and passionate one. A couple of years ago, she was sitting in a cozy office as a mid-level banking staff. But with a burning desire for farming, she transformed from sitting behind a desk to working full-time as a farmer.
My mother has been my hero. She taught me farming from the scratch. I watched my mom as a child and She would go to school, teach us, and return home. We go back home after resting. We enter motor back to the farm. So that passion was built from childhood.
Today, Amaka is easily the most recognizable female farmer in Nigeria. Not only does she have her own farms in some parts of the country where she grows different cash crops, she runs a consultancy that manages farms for her clients. And this one, right in the heart of Lagos, is one of them.
When I look around me, I don't see unemployment. I see unemployed minds. Our minds is a real farm. Before you can be a good farmer, you must start farming from your heart. For every season, I decide what I want to farm.
Amaka is strictly into organic farming, believing it's the most healthy, and she's making good business out of it, exporting quite a number of her products. She also trains young people and women in the art of organic farming and how to make money from it.
It's about creativity. I tell every youth, you don't need to look for the government for anything. If there's anything we farmers need from government, it's not money. What we need is training. Government should set up training institutes where farmers should be properly trained, and industrialization. A lot of farmers are giving up today because they have a problem with their sales. And this problem is because after your harvest, no place to do the processing.
One way Amaka is working to get more young people to embrace farming is to change people's perception of modern-day farmers. She's quick to use herself as an example.
In fact, when I appear to teach women and they say she's a farmer, most of them don't believe it. They believe that a farmer has to look dirty, you have to look so unkempt. I tell them, no. I believe you can actually be classy and be a farmer.
With the Nigerian government concentrating heavily on agriculture as part of its diversification drive, young farmers like Amaka have become a strong reference point. It's therefore up to the government to leverage on farming projects like hers to drive its national agriculture campaign. But on her own, Amaka is gradually winning young people to her organic farming initiative.
Coming up, African stories. Congo opposition parties fault new cabinet of not giving them enough voice. And later, international news. Tropical storm Dorian heads toward Puerto Rico. Schools closed, emergency shelters open.
You are watching ANN.
This used to be me. But that was before I got the perfect bag. It's handy and easy to use. All I need in one compact space, just like my MTN Extra Value plan. I used to get one plan for my calls and then try to remember which data plan worked for me. Roaming was a totally different ballgame. Not anymore. I've got the MTN Extra Value all-in-one plan. If you're a data buff like me, you get extra data with some talk time. And if you like to make calls, you get extra talk time with some data. And when I'm abroad, I automatically browse, chat, and call right on the same plan. MTN Extra Value was made just for me.
More of data or calls, whichever one you prefer. MTN Extra Value is made just for you.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Now to African stories. Tanzania will begin repatriating nearly 200,000 Burundi refugees in October under a deal reached by both countries. And this has triggered great worry among the refugees. One civil society group is considering a lawsuit if any refugee should be forced to return. Some individuals are considering an appeal to the UN over the issue. The agreements to repatriate the refugees was signed by Tanzanian and Burundi interior ministers and was announced on Sunday. By the beginning of October, the refugees would be returned to Burundi at the rate of 2,000 per week. The refugees are spread over several camps in western Tanzania. The refugees were among hundreds of thousands fleeing political unrest which broke out after a controversial 2015 election in the small Central East African nation. That election gave President Pierre Nkurunziza a third term, one that will keep him in power until 2034. Opposition parties in the Democratic Republic of the Congo are not happy with the way the new president has chosen his cabinet. They are dissatisfied that not enough slots are given to opposition members. President Felix Tshisekedi has just announced his cabinet on Monday, 7 months after winning the election. His appointment into the 65-member cabinet looks like this: 23 appointees from his own party, Direction for Change. 42 are from the Common Front for Congo coalition, which is the party of former President Joseph Kabila. That is where opposition parties have a problem. They say the setup means former President Joseph Kabila's regime is still ruling and that this cabinet gives too much power to allies of the former president. They say there is not enough opposition voices in the cabinet. Tshisekedi came into power in January and was accused then of rigging the election. Now he's been accused of being a puppet of former President Kabila. Tshisekedi's media aide, Abraham Lukubwanga, says the cabinet is diverse, with representatives of all 26 of DRC's provinces, including women and young people who previously did not have a voice in government. He said they will address issues of corruption and the ongoing Ebola outbreak. Medical doctors in Zimbabwe may pile on the problems facing the country if they make good on their threats to go on strike next Tuesday. The doctors' union, the Zimbabwe Hospital Doctors Association, has announced that its members have rejected the 60% salary increase offered by their employer. As a result, it says the doctors will go on strike from next Tuesday if the issue is not addressed. The association's threats were contained in a letter to the Ministry of Health and Child Care. Zimbabwe can least afford additional medical crisis with a looming doctor strike. Already, medicines are scarce and in short supply, and services are costly. Other areas of the country's economy are being stretched to the limit, and the country has experienced strikes in other sectors in the past year that have proved quite damaging to the economy. Uganda's national flag carrier, Uganda Airlines, has been reborn and relaunched in a ceremony in Kampala. The airline was first founded by the country's former dictator, Idi Amin, in 1976. It was liquidated in 2001 during a push to privatize state firms. Prime Minister Ruganda said at the relaunching ceremony, the airline's revival will reduce the cost of air transport and ease connectivity to and from Uganda. Isabel Nakuyo reports from Kampala.
After a long absence, Uganda Airlines is back off the ground. The inaugural flight to Nairobi had government officials and journalists on board.
We shall straight away go for intercontinental flights to a few high-volume destinations of travelers to and from Uganda. There has never been a better time to commence commercial operations than now, when passenger traffic is growing, given the increasing demand for Uganda tourism.
And President Yoweri Museveni calls the airline a symbol of national pride. After 18 years, Uganda's national carrier is flying again with the first flight to Nairobi's Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. The airline says this will be the most busy route. Fares on the Entebbe-Nairobi route have been among the most expensive in the region, with the ticket going for as high as $600. Uganda Airlines will be having promotional flights, with some fares dropping to around $200. The government says travel throughout the region will become simpler.
With Uganda Airlines, our friends all over the world can now enjoy uninterrupted service across the region. Flying in the region is going to be much easier, better, and I believe more comfortable.
Uganda Airlines was grounded nearly 2 decades ago over financial mismanagement. The government hopes the airline will be more financially secure once oil revenues begin to flow into the country. But competition is also expected from regional airlines like Kenya and Rwanda Airways, which fly the same routes.
Take the bull by the horns and make sure that this airline is successful. Government will give you all the support that you need because it is a national airline.
The country has ordered 2 more Bombardier aircrafts to arrive later this year. 2 Airbus jetliners have also been purchased. The government hopes the revival of the airline will facilitate trade and promote tourism in the region.
When we return, international news. Puerto Rico under a state of emergency as tropical storm Dorian approaches. And later, sports. Flying Eagles now in final of African Games.
You are watching ANN.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Now to international stories. Tropical storm Dorian is heading toward Puerto Rico. Schools are closed and emergency shelters are open on the island, which is still struggling to recover from back-to-back storms in 2017. Weather forecasters say Dorian should be near hurricane strength by the time it passes over the island's western and central parts. Governor of the U.S. territory, Uganda has already declared a state of emergency and warned of possible landslides, flash floods, and power outages. Thousands of homes still lack roofs, and kilometers of roads are still a wreck from Hurricane Maria, the powerful storm that tore across Puerto Rico in 2017, devastating the island and killing as many as 3,000 persons. The U.S. National Hurricane Center said Dorian had topped sustained winds of 85 kilometers per hour overnight and was expected to strengthen slightly during the day on Wednesday. Our scientists have said global and climate change are the main causes of the increasing mountain fires around the world. Sweta Chakraborty was answering questions on China Global Television Network, CGTN in Washington, D.C. on Tuesday.
Depending on which region we're talking about, they're unique in their own right. They're connected because the global temperature is warming and the global weather and climate system is connected through what meteorologists refer to as teleconnections, and that's really important to keep in mind. What's happening is because the temperatures are warming globally, what we're seeing is what normally is seasonality of wildfires is actually now happening all year round, and that's significant. So fire season, it is fire season, but we're gonna start seeing fire season like we've seen in California in the United States, go from just being a few months a year to pretty much all year round. We're gonna see that increase in frequency and
so said what happens in the Amazon or the Congo Basin is not unique to those regions. She said it will impact the entire global weather system. The scientist refuted the view about fire season. She warned that seasonal wildfires are actually happening all year round. She blames deforestation and healthy land management for the fires. Chakraborty said local governments need to educate local residents in forest protection.
Forestation and just really not well thought out practices of land management and protection of the forests and enforcement of protection of those forests that have resulted in what we're seeing there. That's not exactly what we're seeing in the Congo Basin. What we're seeing there is agricultural practices that, as the previous anchor was just talking about, haven't been followed and education hasn't been provided to those who are really stewards of the land. And for that reason, there's that risk of the forest there, the second largest after the Amazon, that is so critical for keeping our planet cool and habitable. We're seeing that now at risk.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has something up his sleeve as he prepares to take Britain out of the European Union at the end of October. his plans to limit Parliament's opportunity to derail his Brexit plans by announcing his new legislative agenda by the middle of October. Reuters news agency is quoting a government source as saying Johnson plans to set October the 14th as the date for the Queen's speech, which will be the formal state opening of a new session of Parliament. That move would shut Parliament from mid-September for about a month. It would also reduce the parliamentary time in which lawmakers could try to block a no-deal Brexit. Of course, this has generated an immediate outcry. Pound sterling fell sharply, losing around a cent against the US dollar and the euro. Investors took the news as a sign that a no-deal Brexit was more likely and it could hit the British economy badly. The protests in Hong Kong have gone on now for 12 weeks. What started as a peaceful demonstration quickly turned violent along the way. This has become of major concern to Chinese authorities, who are renewing calls for an end to the violence.
Chaos, destruction, violence. Over the weekend, 21 police officers were injured, while 86 people were detained.
Violence cannot solve any problems. Violence cannot be lawful or glorified. And we will not use violence to end the violence. We will use lawful measures to end violence and restore order in Hong Kong.
Hong Kong police are once again condemning the violence of recent protests.
We have seen that the radical protests have spread to different communities, generating increasingly extensive impacts. We must point out that any use of violence and behavior that harm others can never be accepted by a civilized society, and that no lawbreaking or violent behavior can be glorified or justified.
Earlier, Beijing responded to a joint statement issued by G7 leaders on the situation in Hong Kong.
No one is more concerned about Hong Kong's prosperity and stability than Chinese people, which also includes Hong Kong residents. We will take care of our own affairs, and I urge leaders of G7 countries to mind their own business. In regard to the Sino-British Joint Declaration, I would like to stress again that the core content of the declaration is to determine China's right to resume sovereignty over Hong Kong.
Teachers in Hong Kong are weighing in on the situation. It is even making them question the education system.
It's so unfortunate. Teachers today, especially the younger ones, have different opinions about the Chinese mainland. When they take on a negativity, they end up sharing it with their students. Students are like pieces of white paper. Whatever their teachers say, they would more often than not take it as fact.
Last weekend's violence was one of the worst after 12 weeks of protests in Hong Kong. Stocks have also had the worst drop in nearly a year as investors worry over the ongoing unrest.
Up next, sports. Flying Eagles defeat Mali to qualify for African Games final. Please stay with us.
You are watching ANN.
Whether in your house, at your office, on your phone or online, we are there. We have the facts behind the headlines. We cut to the chase with the news you really need. We cover every angle. We are the bigger, better news network. We are African News Network. ANN. Watch ANN News on MITV from a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News in Sports. The Niger under-20 team, the Flying Eagles, have qualified for the final of the football event at the ongoing African Games in Morocco. This will be the first time Nigeria will play the final match in the African Games since their 0-1 loss to Algeria in 1978. After winning the gold medal of the football event on home soil in Lagos in 1973, the football gold has been elusive for Nigeria ever since. Another good news from Morocco. Niger's Falconets defeated Algeria 3-0 on Monday in Rabat to book the ticket to the gold medal match of the 2019 African Games. The Nigerian women dominated the semi-final from start to finish, but the North Africans pecked back to their own half of the pitch. The Falconets will play either Morocco or Cameroon in the final of the competition. And that's the way to go. That is it in news this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on these and other breaking stories, visit our website, annafrica.news. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Have a pleasant evening.